used to think walking was enough. Every morning, right after my coffee, I'd lace up my shoes and go 2, sometimes 3 miles around the neighborhood loop. I felt proud of it too. Thought I was doing the right thing, keeping the old machine running, you know? But something changed. Not all at once. Like most things at this age, it was subtle. I started to notice the small struggles. Lifting the laundry basket, getting up from my chair without leaning hard on the armrests, twisting the lid off a jar. Things I used to do without thinking. I chalked it up to age. What else could it be? 80's not 70, I told myself, and 70 wasn't 50. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just time. It was something about how I was moving, or maybe not moving enough in the right ways. I had spent years walking, but I hadn't picked up anything heavier than a soup can. No stretching, no lifting, no balancing on one foot. Just walking. Straight lines, flat ground. My body got good at one thing, and started forgetting everything else. I remember one morning, I tried to lift a small box off the floor. Not even that heavy, but my back shouted first, then my knees joined in. I stood there frozen for a second, embarrassed in my own kitchen. That's when it hit me. Walking had kept me mobile, sure, but it hadn't kept me strong. Strength doesn't stay because you hope it will. You have to ask it to come back. And at this age, it doesn't come easy. I started slow, a couple soup cans while watching TV. A resistance band around my knees while sitting in the living room. I wasn't trying to become some gym hero. I just wanted to be able to open the pickle jar again without calling my grandson. Funny thing is, once I started, my walks felt better too. My legs weren't dragging as much. I didn't need to pause halfway to catch my breath. And that stiffness that used to sneak up after sitting too long started to fade. That's the thing no one tells you. Walking is movement. But strength is what lets you stay in motion. Without it, every step is borrowed time. And balance was another quiet thief. One day, I was brushing my teeth and nearly toppled over just trying to lift one foot to scratch my ankle. I caught myself on the sink, heart racing like I'd seen a ghost. That's the kind of moment that changes something deep in a man, not just in the body, but in the trust you have with it. It wasn't that I couldn't walk straight. Could. But walking doesn't ask your body to react to surprise. It doesn't teach your ankle what to do when the sidewalk cracks or when the floor's a little wet. Balance is a skill that leaves slowly and returns slowly, and only if you ask for it back. I started with simple things. Standing on one leg while waiting for the kettle to whistle. Walking heel to toe along the hallway like I was on a tightrope. I looked ridiculous at first, and to be honest, I still do. But I haven't grabbed for a railing in months. You lose balance not because you're clumsy, but because life gets too predictable. At this age, we seek comfort, soft ground, even surfaces. But comfort doesn't train you. Only a little wobble can teach you how to stay upright. It's funny, I used to think aging meant slowing down. But now I think it just means narrowing. You stop reaching. You avoid bending. You stop testing your edge. And the body, well, it notices. Flexibility was the third thing I let go of without even realizing it. You don't really miss it until the morning you can't put on a sock without sitting down. Or when you twist too fast and something in your back bites back. I remember leaning into the car to grab something in the back seat and not being able to twist my spine like I used to. I sat back down and just stared for a moment, wondering when that movement had become foreign to me. Stretching had always felt optional. A thing for dancers or yoga types. But at 70-something, your joints become like dry wood. They creak, they crack, and one wrong twist, they splinter. So I started small. Just neck rolls in the morning, shoulder shrugs while waiting for the microwave, reaching gently toward my toes before bed. Nothing fancy, but it helped. The stiffness didn't vanish overnight, but it softened, like ice melting a little each day. There's a kind of freedom in being able to move the way you want, and a kind of grief when that freedom slips away. At this age, grief comes in small pieces. The lost reach, the abandoned shelf you can't clean anymore, the jacket you ask someone else to help you put on. But movement, the right kind of movement, brings pieces back. And that's what I'd forgotten. Walking kept my legs busy, sure, but the rest of me, The parts that twist, bend, lift, react, those parts needed more. It's humbling, really, to realize that staying alive isn't just about breathing. It's about maintaining the body that carries the breath. There was a time I stood tall, not just in height, but in presence. You know what I mean? When your spine holds you like an old oak tree, rooted, dependable. I didn't hunch. I didn't sway. My steps were firm and my breath came easy. That changed slowly. Like most losses after 70, it didn't make a sound. I'd catch my reflection sometimes, walking past a store window or brushing my teeth, and see a man curved forward, not bent from sorrow, just wearied by gravity. It started with a little ache in my lower back. Nothing sharp, just constant. Then came the stiffness after standing too long.
Idelean non counters.
Shift my weight. Adjust my belt like it was too tight, though it never was. I didn't know then that it was my core weakening bit by bit. Not the abs you see on magazine covers, I never had those, but the quiet muscles deeper down. The ones that hold your spine, that guide your center, that whisper to your posture when you forget how to stand proud. And once those muscles fade, everything else starts to go with them. I get winded quicker. Turning suddenly would throw me off. Even sneezing, I kid you not, made me feel like something might snap. But here's the truth that took me too long to learn. Posture isn't a matter of will. It's a matter of muscle. And if you don't use those muscles, they slip away quietly, leaving you held up by habits instead of strength. I thought I could fix it by straightening up, standing tall on purpose. But that only made me sore. My body wasn't resisting age. It was begging for support. So I made a new deal with myself. Each morning before breakfast, I'd stand against the wall. Feet flat, back pressed, head touching. I'd breathe slowly and feel how far I drifted from my old frame. Then I'd gently draw in my belly, not in vanity, but in service. Service to this old vessel that still carries me from chair to garden, from memory to moment. It wasn't dramatic, just small reminders to wake the muscles that sleep too long when left alone. A slow twist side to side while holding a pillow. Some seated leg lifts. And believe it or not, laughing helped too. Real belly laughter. It shakes the whole core awake. Funny how we forget joy is a form of exercise. As the weeks passed, I noticed things. I could reach higher without strain. My breathing deepened. That slight forward tilt in my shoulders began to reverse. It wasn't perfection, but it was progress. And more than the posture, it brought back a quiet pride. The kind you don't wear like a badge, but feel deep in your chest when you move through a room and your spine doesn't whisper complaints. Still, I wish I'd known sooner, because the years I spent ignoring my center, they took something from me. A sense of stability, a sense of confidence. You see, when your posture falters, so does your balance. And your dignity isn't far behind. I remember one afternoon, the air smelled like rain, and I tried to step off the curb after chatting with a neighbor. My foot caught on nothing, just space and assumption. I stumbled, flung an arm out, caught myself barely. It wasn't the fall that scared me. It was the realization that I could've. After that day, I walked slower, not because I wanted to, but because I doubted myself. And that was the worst part. Not the stumble, not the ache, but the doubt. We all stumble now and then. But after 70, a stumble isn't just a stumble. It's a warning, a whisper from your body that you're not ready for surprises anymore. And aging, for all its wisdom, is full of surprises. If you're still here, leave me a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear if any of this has echoed in your own story. Maybe it's a small moment, a shift you noticed, or a time your body said, "Hey, I need a little more from you." This old heart still listens, and I'd be grateful to hear from you. You ever notice how the knees speak first? Long before the heart complains, before the memory slips or the balance wavers. The joints whisper, not with words, but with little hesitations. It started with the stairs. Used to be, I'd take them 2 at a time, then just 1 at a time, then slowly. Not because I was winded, but because my knees began to protest. Gently, then sharply, like a rusted hinge that had gone too long without oil. I figured it was age. What else could it be? But it wasn't just years, it was repetition. Every day, walking the same flat path, the same pace. My feet moved, sure, but my joints, they took the brunt of it.
No stretching. No rotation.
No softening movements to cushion the daily pounding. Sod, isn't it? Walking feels gentle, harmless even. But when that's all you do, it wears a groove into the same few parts of your body. Ankles, knees, hips, they're loyal but not invincible. I remember waking up one morning with an ache in my hip that wouldn't shake off. Not pain exactly, just a slow, steady stiffness. Like the joint was holding a memory it didn't want to share. Getting out of bed became a calculation. I'd sit first, stretch my legs carefully, and still, some days it felt like walking on wooden pegs instead of flesh and bone. That's when I finally listened. Not to a doctor, though God bless them, but to my own discomfort. It wasn't asking for medication. It was asking for variety, for mercy. So I traded some of my long walks for something new. I sat in a chair and gently lifted each leg, like a marionette testing its strings. I circled my ankles while listening to the radio, did soft knee bends in the hallway, hands grazing the wall like a dancer holding her first bar. And water, oh water, floating took the weight away. I joined a low-impact pool group at the community center. We weren't graceful, a bunch of old fools bobbing around, but we were moving, stretching, supporting one another with laughter and shared aches. After a few weeks, my hips sighed with relief. My knees didn't throb after walks anymore. I could stand longer at the kitchen sink without shifting from foot to foot. You don't need to punish your joints to keep them strong. You need to love them. Most of us wait too long to give them that love. We mistake quiet wear for strength. But even steel bends if it's overused in the same direction. I think often of my neighbor Raymond, sweet man, proud walker. Rain or shine, every morning he made his lap around the park. Keeps me young, he'd say, tipping his cap. But one summer, I noticed he stopped greeting me from the sidewalk. He was still walking, sure, but slower, less steady. And one day, he knocked on my door and said, "You ever feel like your knees are made of glass?" I nodded. We didn't need to say more. We sat and talked for an hour about the ache that comes from devotion to a habit that, over time, becomes too narrow, and how we both learned, late in the game, that movement needs balance, that for every step forward, your body craves a pause, a stretch, a shift, kindness. You see, aging doesn't ask us to stop, it asks us to listen. Your joints will tell you what they need, not in words but in aches, in little hesitations, in the way you rub your elbow without noticing, or sit longer than you meant to because getting up feels like work. These aren't failures, they're messages, invitations, really, to slow down, to care, to learn new rhythms. I started doing a simple test each week, sitting in a chair, then standing without using my hands. Some days I rose easily, other days I wobbled, but it kept me honest, kept me aware of what was slipping and what I could still save. And let me tell you something, there's a kind of quiet joy in tending to your body like a garden, not a machine. Gentle movements, patient strengthening, small daily care that adds up, not all at once but in ways that matter. When I walk now, I still enjoy it. But I walk knowing that it's only part of the picture. That strength, balance, posture, flexibility, and joint care all hold hands like old friends, each leaning on the other to stay upright. You ever get tired in a way that sleep can't fix? Not just the heavy eyelids kind of tired, but the kind that settles somewhere deep in the ribs, in the bones, in the space between your breath and your will. That kind of tired came for me around 75. Not suddenly, not loudly. It just began to arrive earlier in the day. Mid-afternoon, then noon, and then, sometimes right after waking, as if I'd missed some secret recovery in the night. I thought I was just slowing down, that maybe this was the rhythm of old age, wake, eat, sit, nap. But there was something else underneath it, a fatigue that felt like resignation, not just in my body, in my spirit too. I didn't have the strength I used to, not just in my arms or legs but in my core, in the place that steadies you when the wind picks up. Not the kind outside, but the kind that blows through your circumstances. What I didn't know then is that your center, your core, isn't just about lifting or twisting. It's about endurance, about staying upright when everything around you starts to droop. I'd walk for 15 minutes and feel fine, but then I'd stop at the corner, hands on hips, catching a breath I didn't know I'd lost. My legs weren't sore, but they felt untrustworthy, like scaffolding set too loosely. One day, I was standing in the kitchen peeling an orange when I caught myself leaning hard on the counter. My spine sagged, my abdomen limp. I wasn't in pain, just absent. My body was moving without support, like a house with a hollow frame. So I sat down, not just because I was tired, but because something inside me whispered, "You're slipping." And that whisper grew louder each day. They don't teach you this when you're young. No one says, strength fades quietly. They talk about wrinkles and memory and cholesterol, but no one mentions that, past a certain age, gravity changes. Pulls on you harder. Not just physically, but emotionally. You slouch a little more after bad news. You fold into yourself during long silences. And if your body doesn't have the scaffolding, that deep, quiet strength in your belly, your back, your breath, then even standing still becomes an effort. I started doing something simple every morning. Before I even stood up from bed, I'd brace my stomach gently. Not with force, but with presence. I'd breathe into my back, letting it wake slowly. I'd imagine a thread lifting the top of my head, just slightly. I wasn't training to look younger. I was learning how to occupy myself again. Core work at 80 doesn't look like sit-ups or gym mats. It looks like rolling your shoulders back while brushing your teeth, pressing your lower back into the chair cushion while reading, twisting gently to grab the teapot instead of turning your whole body. Small things, humble things, but enough to remind your center it still has a job. And I'll tell you something I didn't expect. Once I started paying attention to my posture, my breath returned. Deeper, slower, more loyal. It's strange how connected everything is. Weak core, shallow breath. Poor posture, poor digestion. Slouching shoulders, heavy thoughts. You change one, the others follow. That's what I'd missed for too long. I thought fatigue was about getting old. But in truth, much of it came from a body left unsupported. From muscles that hadn't been called upon in years. We say, "I'm tired," and move on. We chalk it up to age. We sit a little longer, cancel the walk, stay quiet. But sometimes tired isn't just tired. It's a signal, a reminder that your foundation needs attention, that your inner frame is asking to be rebuilt, not abandoned. And let me say this gently, no one else will rebuild it for you. Doctors can offer advice, family can offer help, but the work of reclaiming your strength, of standing taller, breathing deeper, moving with presence, that's yours to do. Not as punishment, as devotion, to this body that's carried you this far, to the breath that still rises, to the dignity that still deserves a frame strong enough to hold it. Some mornings now I just sit with my tea and breathe, not to do anything, just to be. I watch the light move across the floor, slow as syrup. I listen to the birds, not because I know their names, but because they sing whether I do or not. And in those quiet minutes, I feel something I didn't always feel in my 70s. Stillness, yes, but also steadiness. It didn't come from walking farther or pushing harder. Came from shifting inward, from noticing. That's something I wish I'd understood sooner. For so many years, I thought effort was the answer. More steps, more laps. Just keep moving, they said. But moving where exactly? I was walking in circles around my neighborhood, wearing down the soles of my shoes and the cushions of my knees. While the rest of me, the quiet parts, the small muscles, the stabilizers, they were falling asleep. Walking gave me momentum, but it didn't give me resilience. And after 70, resilience is everything. The ability to bend without breaking, to pause without collapsing, to move with intention, not just inertia. I began to treat movement as something sacred. Not just exercise, but nourishment. For the joints, yes, but also for the dignity that lives in my spine, the memory that rests in my shoulders. I started listening to my body as if it were a conversation. Some days it asked for gentle motion, a few circles of the ankles while seated. Other days it wanted water not just to drink, but to move in. Floating became my best teacher.
No gravity.
No pressure, just presence. And on the rare days when everything felt tired, I didn't push. I rested, not from laziness, but from wisdom. You learn over time that preservation is not the same as passivity. To pause is not to give up. It's to prepare. Because even at 80, I want to be able to reach the high shelf. To turn my head fully when someone calls my name. To tie my own shoes. To bend and greet my great-granddaughter with open arms instead of stiff shoulders. These are not small things. They are everything. We don't move to stay young. We move to stay human. To stay capable of touch, of gesture, of independence. I remember the day I picked up a bag of groceries without thinking about it. Just grabbed it, held it, carried it in.
No stran. No pause.
Just motion. And then it hit me. This is what I'd been working for. Not six-pack abs or longer walks, but that quiet ease. That return to normalcy. You don't always notice when the pain leaves. Sometimes it's only in hindsight that you realize it's gone. But you do notice when you can move again. When your joints hum instead of scream. When your back supports instead of sags. When your balance meets you halfway. And that's worth every small act of care. If you're listening to this now, I hope you know, you haven't missed your chance. The body may forget, yes, but it also remembers. It remembers how to stretch, how to steady, how to breathe into effort without fear. All it asks is that you remind it, gently, consistently, lovingly. And if you're still unsure where to begin, start small. Stand tall while brushing your teeth. Lift your heels while waiting for the kettle. Rotate your wrists while watching the evening news. These tiny acts, they build a bridge back to yourself. And one day, without fanfare or applause, you'll notice you're standing taller, reaching farther, feeling more alive in the frame you call home. So wherever you are now, 70, 80, even beyond, take heart. The path forward isn't behind you. It's beneath your feet, still forming, still forgiving. And if you'd like to return here again, you know where to find me. This space doesn't go anywhere. It waits, like a porch light left on, just in case you need a little warmth at the end of the day.